Our reading from the New Testament is from John 14. For those with church Bibles, that's page 763. John 14, we'll read verses 1 to 4 and then verses 25 to 27. John 14 from verse 1. Do not let your hearts be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. My Father's house has many rooms. If that were not so, would I have told you that I am going there to prepare a place for you? And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you to be with me, that you may also be where I am. You know the way to the place where I am going. And from verse 25, all this I have spoken while still with you, but the Advocate, the Holy Spirit, whom the Father will send in my name, will teach you all things and will remind you of everything I have said to you. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your heart be troubled, and do not be afraid. Amen.
A couple of weeks ago when I was here, we spent a little bit of time looking at Psalm 73 together. And in that psalm, we looked at Asaph's wrestle with doubt about whether following God was even worth it. But this morning I would like us to look at a very different kind of psalm. As Warren has mentioned, we're going to look at Psalm 131. And this is a very simple, short psalm, a very reflective, self-aware psalm. Many of the psalms are sort of outbursts of the full heart, either of praise or of confusion or despair or something else. But this is a much quieter psalm. And I trust that it will be a blessing to us as we consider it this morning. So please read Psalm 131 with me, if you have a Bible. Psalm 131, a song of ascents of David. My heart is not proud, O Lord. My eyes are not haughty. I do not concern myself with great matters, or things too wonderful for me. But I have stilled and quieted my soul. Like a weaned child with its mother, like a weaned child is my soul within me. O Israel, put your hope in the Lord, both now and forevermore. Let's pray. Lord, as we come to your word this morning, we pray that you would open our hearts and our minds to receive it, to understand it. Lord, we pray that you would give us this peace and stillness and trust in you that David knew. We ask these things in your name. Amen. The great Baptist preacher Charles Spurgeon once said that this was one of the shortest psalms to read, but one of the longest to learn. And it's easy to see why that is the case, because we live in a world in David's time, in Spurgeon's time, and now when there's many things that can make our hearts be everything but still and peaceful and trusting in God. So many things that can churn our hearts up and trouble them. Peace and rest and stillness, I think, generally are very attractive to people and to us, but most of the time the way we live and the choices we make, often the sinful choices we make, mean that peace and rest and stillness are very elusive for us as well. We live in a world that longs for peace but doesn't really know how to find it, on a national level or on a personal, individual level. And as Christians, we're not immune to that either. We feel fear and worry and anxiety just like other people do. We can be angry and frustrated and unhappy, and sometimes that's not all wrong, because we live in a broken, sinful world. There would be a problem if we were perfectly happy and content with things the way they are, because things aren't right. But at the same time, Even that passage that Warren read from Jesus in John 14, he says, do not let your hearts be troubled. Don't be afraid. Jesus calls us to trust in him, to rest in him, not to be churned up and anxious all the time. But how do we do that? We could look at John 14, because Jesus explained some of it there, but this morning we're going to look at this little psalm. How do we find this peace and stillness? How did David find that? And really, there's just two parts to the psalm that I want us to look at, and we'll look at one then the other, but really they go together like two sides of a coin. The first was David had some things he had to let go of in order to come to God and rest on God and trust God. He had to let go of some stuff. And at the same time, he had to lean on God. So those are the two things I would like us to consider: letting go and leaning on God. But David starts by saying, my heart is not proud, O Lord. My eyes are not haughty. I do not concern myself with great matters or things too wonderful for me. He starts off kind of in the negative. These are the things that he's not, or that his heart is not. These are the things that he's let go of and put away so that he can turn to God and rest on him. And as it's clearer, especially in the second half of verse 1 and again in verse 2, this isn't just the way David woke up one morning, feeling all calm and peaceful. I mean, that might happen, but this is not what David's talking about. This is something that he has consciously directed himself to do. This is something that he's been active in. This letting go, this leaning on God. And there's three things really I think we could summarize it that he's letting go of. And the first, obviously, is pride. My heart is not proud, O Lord, my eyes are not haughty. Why do we have to let go of pride to lean on God and find rest? Well, pride is when we lift ourselves up as high as we can, and whenever possible we look down on everyone else around us. In effect, what we're doing is trying to take some of the glory that ought to be going to God and pull it and hold it to ourselves. We're making ourselves more than we ought to be. Peter tells us, the Bible tells us, that God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. When we're trying to puff ourselves up and steal some of the glory that belongs to God, it's really not at all possible to then lean on God and rest in Him and trust in Him, because we're trying to puff ourselves up and beat Him in a tiny way. Look down on other people all the time. My heart is not proud, O Lord, David said. My eyes are not haughty. He's not coming to God with that attitude that I'm important. No peace can be found that way. But he carries on. I do not concern myself with great matters. David, as well as putting away pride, has also put away, I think, ambition. I do not concern myself with great matters. He's not saying, I don't care about anything that's important. There are important things, and it's good to care, but what he's saying is he's content where God has put him at that time, and he's not reaching up for something that God hasn't given him. We don't know when David wrote this, but I think whenever he did, he would have been content with what he had, where God had given him. David started off as a shepherd boy, the youngest of many sons, and I think when he was following the sheep, he wasn't fretting about how to make himself king, or even how to make himself anything other than what he was. It was God who raised David up to be the king, not David's scheming. He wasn't an ambitious, scheming man in that way. He's not enviously looking at people above him with more power or authority or wealth and saying, how can I take their place? He was content to worry about what God had given him to worry about until God gave him something else to worry about, if you know what I mean. Spurgeon, again commenting on this thought of this verse, said, many through wishing to be great have failed to be good. I think there's quite a bit of wisdom in that. If we're so worried about making ourselves better or stronger or greater than where God has put us, we fail to actually do what we're meant to be doing. And when we're always worried about climbing higher and pulling ourselves up and not being content with where God's put us, that's no recipe for peace or rest in God either. So David is letting go of pride, he's letting go of ambition. He says, I do not concern myself with great matters or things too wonderful for me. I think the last thing that David is letting go of here is worry, sort of fretting about things that he can't control. David knows that there are things that he cannot understand in life, in his life or in the world around him, things that God hasn't revealed. And he refuses to let those agitate him or worry him. He's willing to trust God with the things that only God can know and sort out. He's not being a fatalist where he says, well, what's going to happen is going to happen and I don't care. And it's not sort of a passive just ignoring of every problem. It's an act of handing those things to God instead. And saying, look, I can't solve all these things. There are many things that we can know and we ought to know and we ought to try and improve, or that we ought to be involved with, but there are some things that we just have to let go and leave to God. I don't know whether I should use this example or not. It's kind of painful for me, but some of you will be aware my dad took his life 4 months ago. The psalm has been a wonderful one actually over those last 4 months. Not an easy one to practice, but there are some things in life that you cannot understand for yourself. And if you try, well, I don't know what will happen, but you certainly won't have any peace and rest in God. There are some things that are just too big for us, that we have to leave to God. All of these things kind of boil down to letting God be God. Our nature wants to be in control, to be our own little kings, to lift ourselves up, to make everything work for us. But of course, we're not God and we can't do all those things. And when we try, we certainly can't find the peace and the rest and the reliance on God that David is sharing with us in this little psalm. Sometimes even as Christians we can kind of have the attitude that I'll trust God when I know how this is going to work out, or when I know that this will work for me. But until I know that it's all going to fit and suit me, I really can't trust God. But that's no sort of trust or faith at all. Because that's saying I need to know how it's going to work before I'll go along with it. I guess in the ultimate big picture, God has given us that. We know how our lives are going to work out in the end. We know that Jesus will return, that there'll be a new heavens and a new earth, but a lot of the details along the way we don't know. And we don't have any promise that it will always work out happily. And if we try and force that through our own wisdom or planning or something, there's no peace or rest or stillness to be had that way. This is definitely something that we have to be active in, but it's also something that we can't just grit our teeth and do in our own strength. We need God's help to be letting go of those things, to let God be in control, to let Him be God, and not try and do that for ourselves. So that's the first half. That's what David is letting go of. But at the same time, in conjunction with that, as he lets go of these things, he's leaning on God. And again, this is something that we're active in. It's not something that David just woke up and felt. I have stilled and quieted my soul. David has been involved in this. He needs God's strength, sure, but it's something that is God's people that we can be part of. I've stilled and quieted my soul, David says. It's a little bit like what Paul says in Philippians. I have learned to be content. How do we do this, though? It sounds amazing. It sounds good. I'm sure it sounds like something we all want, but maybe it's not so easy. How do we come before God and still and quiet our souls and just trust Him and rest on Him? I think there's a few things that are helpful. First of all, kind of self-awareness. I don't want to sound all psychological, but self-awareness is important. David kind of knew what was going on in his heart, and he'd actively directed it toward God and toward trusting Him. If you look in, I think, Psalm 42 and 43, there's a verse that is repeated 2 or 3 times. Why are you downcast, O my soul? Why so disturbed within me? Put your hope in God, for I will yet praise Him, my Saviour and my God. In those verses, the psalmist is actively understanding how he's feeling. He's all downcast, and he's seeking to turn his soul and focus it on God. He's reminding himself of the truths that he knows and he believes. And he's trying to reason himself back into a place of peace and trust in God. So we actually have to be able to look at ourselves and understand a little bit of what's going on in our hearts. Another thing that we really need if we're going to come before God like this is actually some time. We can't expect to have a still and a quiet and a peaceful soul if we never take any time to just relax and to read God's Word. If we're rushing around frantically busy all the time, there's no time to do any of this. But really the most important thing is simply learning to rest on God. That's what David's talking about. He has this illustration. I've stilled and quieted my soul like a weaned child with its mother. Like a weaned child is my soul within me. What does David mean by that? How is his soul like a weaned child? What's he talking about? If you think about it for a minute, a baby that is not weaned, or is perhaps in the process of being weaned, not always, but often when it's with its mother, it will be fussing or fretting because it wants to nurse, it wants to feed. A weaned child, on the other hand, has learned, like, it doesn't need that anymore, so when it's with its mother, it can just simply rest on its mother. It's not grasping for anything, it's not wanting anything, it can just be still. An unweaned child hasn't learned how to just be still, be content, not need anything, and just need its mother's presence only. That's the weaned child. An unweaned one is going to want milk, or it's going to want something else. The weaned child has just learnt to look to its mother for comfort and safety and protection, not grasping for other stuff all the time. I think that's a good picture of what David is doing with his soul as he leans on God. You might be thinking, is this how our lives should always look? Is David saying that all the time I'm just kind of peaceful, relaxed, laid back, resting on God? Well, I think it would be good for us to have an awful lot more of that in our lives, but it's not necessarily that we have to have this stillness all of the time. Even just read through the rest of the Psalms. There are some Psalms where David or the psalmist is enthusiastically praising God. His heart isn't really still, it's just bursting with praise to God. That's good. There's other times where he's deeply sorrowful and repenting for his sin. And if we have sinned, that's good as well. And there are many Psalms when the psalmist is confused and anxious and worried, and that's what happens in our lives. But it's at those times especially when there's so much blessing if we learn to come and to rest in God. In fact, if you think about the illustration of a little child, I think it's helpful, because a weaned child isn't supposed to spend all of its time just resting in its mother's arms. But when does a little child instinctively run to mum? When it's hurt, when it's afraid, when something else is going wrong. And it's funny because, a child, even not a very little child, will do that. You get hurt or they get frightened and burst into tears and run to mum. And mum doesn't actually make the pain go away. You've fallen over, you've grazed your knee, you're small, you run and get a hug from mum and it's all better. But it's not all better because your knee doesn't hurt anymore. I don't quite know what it is, but the presence and the comfort of the mother makes the child realise that there's more to life than just a hurt knee. Life will go on. It's okay. Mum still loves me. She's looking after me. Somehow that presence and comfort is very real. And not just for little kids. It stays real till you're quite big sometimes. And that's how our souls ought to be with God. That's what David is describing for us here. He's not saying trusting in God makes life always easy, always smooth, always unruffled. It's not at all the case. He's saying trusting in God like this, learning to let go, to let God be God. Lets him rest, even when life isn't right. Lets him find comfort and stillness in the God that he trusts, the God that saves him. And that can be true of us too. And for us, of course, we have, same as we saw last week with Asaph, we have an advantage over David because we can see God's plan and God's love and God's purpose so much more fully in Jesus than David could see when he wrote these words. If you think about it, when we're trying to let go of our pride, for us, we perhaps can see even more clearly than David that we have nothing to be proud of. Really, when it comes to our standing before God, what do we have that we can puff ourselves up with? The only thing that we contribute to our salvation is the sin that made it necessary, that sent Jesus to the cross. We have nothing to be proud of when we come to God. And I think we should be able to let go of worry even more easily perhaps than David, because we've seen exactly what lengths God will go to redeem and rescue his people. He that spared not his own son, but delivered him up for us all, how shall he not with him also freely give us all things? If God would do that for us, surely we don't need to worry about our ultimate security. I think even we can trust that in the details of our lives that hurt us and shake us about, we can trust that God is in control of those. And if God would send Jesus for us, surely he's not going to send something that will ultimately destroy us. David finishes off this little psalm with a plea, a request to his fellow believers, his fellow Israelites. O Israel, put your hope in the Lord, both now and forevermore. And if we think about it like that, why wouldn't we? Let's us do the same this morning. Don't puff yourself up with pride or torture yourself with worry. Let God be God. Don't try and be God yourself. Let him be your God. Lean on him, and when you're troubled, run to him. Don't be afraid to be like a little child. Let go of a bit of dignity as well, and run to God like a little child. Find your rest and peace with him. I want to finish this morning just by reading a few words that Jesus said in Matthew 11, which I think fit in really well. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. Amen. Let's pray. Lord Jesus, we thank you that you are our King and our God. We believe and trust in you. We thank you that we can let go of pride or ambition, of the need to pull ourselves up, because we know that you loved us the way we were, that you sacrificed yourself for us even in our sins. Lord, help us to humbly accept that. Lord, help us not to torture ourselves with worry when things happen that we can't understand, or when we think things might happen that we won't understand. Help us not to agonize so much over those things, but be willing to just come to you, to leave it in your hands, to say you are our God and we will trust you. Help us to learn to do that, to lean on you, to rest on you, to be like a little child, the way that they can just trust and rely on their mother and be comforted and at peace. Lord, we live in a world where that seems to be so much in need. In our own lives we need it to, and we pray that you would teach us and help us. We thank you for the sacrifice of Jesus that makes it all possible. And Lord, we ask all these things in your precious name.